Okay. Building Committee meeting, Monday, November 5th, 2018. It's approximately 5:33. Called into order. Number 2, review and discuss a proposal for Centennial Contractors Enterprise for the Fred Booth Elementary exterior renovations.
Yes, sir, and I do not see Mr. David Garcia out there either, so I will take a swing at this one. The Fred Booth South Campus, the older, small building across the street,
Okay.
has had some concerns. We have addressed the flooring issue. Mr. Cole, have we addressed the HVAC issue or still in the process?
We're waiting until they finish the outside.
Okay. And so there is some renovation required around the outside of the building. Thank you. That will include some work that will keep water away from the building and hopefully stop us from having the damage that we did this past time. We've had to take classes out of there. Our maintenance department has done a lot of the work inside. Our HVAC department will continue to do the work, but we need a contractor to do some work on the outside of that building to make it usable again. We did put out for bid on this one, and the bid in front of you for $94,571.19 from Centennial was the most competitive bid provided.
For these renovations, Dr. Carmen, were these monies budgeted?
These will fall under the maintenance budget. So, yes, sir. We didn't specifically have a line item for this repair, but he has money in his maintenance budget for these types of situations.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Carmen, does it include the inside a little bit, like the restrooms and leveling?
I don't believe so. I can read through it here. I could be wrong, but I think our guys are taking care of the restrooms. So remove and dispose of all downspouts.
Dr. Carmen, Mr. Garcia's here.
Mr. Garcia, you want to talk about the bid from Centennial? Perfect timing. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, no, it doesn't include anything having to do with the inside. We've repaired the flooring that had fallen in. The problem on the outside is, of course, that building is very old. That's the last part of Fred Booth. That's what's left of it, of South Fred Booth. That's it. Since the flood we had, that's the only part that was left. The exterior has a lot of cracks. Its foundation is giving a little bit, so they'll fill all the cracks. They'll put some EFS, which is a foam, around it, and they'll put some webbing, and then they'll recoat all the outside, all the downspouts and everything. They're going to put veer the water, so all the downspouts, they'll get all the downspouts and push them away from the building, so we don't have any more water going underneath the building. That's what's deteriorating it more and more. So that, and then all the soffit underneath there. The roof is brand new because we got that through the insurance, and they have, so we have a brand new roof. The inside, we've painted most of it, and we're continuing painting all the inside. Then Chris over here will put work on the air conditioning, and we'll have a real good building right after that. We'll be in good shape.
Mr. Garcia, how many more, I know we have several buildings that are up there in age. As far as our criteria, as far as how you age the buildings and so on and so forth, how many, I guess, buildings do you foresee here in the near future that we're gonna need to do some upgrades?
Right off the bat, I think Fred Booth is probably the oldest. We have some old 10 classroom buildings like at Frank Roberts, at La Encantada, but those are holding up pretty good. Other than maybe some minor roof repairs, we're in good shape. The district, and overall, since 30 years, 40 years we've been here, we have a pretty good schools. All our schools are pretty, the high school's 40 years old, but we're taking care of that little by little, but we're good. As long as the roof is good, we can take care of the building itself.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Agenda item? Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
thank you. Number 3, review and discuss of LED financing.
Yes, sir. So here I included proposals for Phase 1, both from EGS and Schneider. If you recall our long history on these LEDs, we had competitive bids. We reviewed those bids, And the breakout was that initially Schneider had been lower, I think, on 10 campuses. E3 was lower on 8 campuses. But the board wanted to do, instead of the tube replacements, they wanted the fixtures replaced, similar to how these fixtures here in the boardroom had been replaced entirely, and wanted to go with a product that had the 10-year parts and labor warranty. So to that end, that would be the MaxLight product through EGS that they offered. And EGS gave us 2 bids, one for the components, and if you click on the EGS bid proposal, scroll to on page 2, you'll see phase 1, those 10 buildings right there, starting with Berta Cabasa and ending with Veterans Memorial Academy. Those are the 10 buildings we're going to discuss tonight. And on page 3, under phase 1, the material costs $842,000 and change, the labor at $306,000. They provided a discounted material cost to Schneider, and the bid from Schneider, if you'll open that attachment, for those 10 campuses is on the bottom of page 1 under the base project price. They included obviously some additional overhead and profit, and their bid was $1,528,000. So my recommendation to the board tonight is that we put on the agenda the approval for EGS for phase 1. Their bid of $1.14 million for those 10 buildings is roughly $380,000 lower than the bid we received from Schneider. Very competitive bid. The other component that we would ask for the board to put on would be authorizing a resolution for the financing. This does qualify for financing. We know the guaranteed savings from the use of the LED lights will pay for the cost, and we think actually then some. So there's a resolution attached there as well that we would ask for the board to put on the agenda for approval, so we can move forward with financing. And like I said, at the end of the day, the savings off of the energy will make the payments on these, so we can do these retrofits for the LED at no cost to the school district. However, the bid that I'm recommending is one that's almost $400,000 less. We also are receiving a plan from EGS on which campuses we believe they can start with and possibly knock out some of the smaller ones by December 31st of 2018 so that we can qualify for some of AEP's rebates this year. And then we'll be eligible for up to, Mr. Cole, $300,000 in the next fiscal year, or $350,000? $350,000?
It should, 3 to 350, but it's, it might, on this year's, I think that's already done. We might have to wait for the first of next year on that,
Okay.
for the rebate.
Okay, so we missed that window. Okay. So just like we had the huge check there, for $56,000, we are still eligible for up to $350,000 per year. So our goal is to time it correctly so that we can get as much in rebate money back off of that. We believe we can do the total project, all 18 buildings, for about $2.1 million, slightly over $2.1 million. Receive our rebates back off of that, and then with the savings we'll receive, we think we can come out ahead every year on a 10-year payment.
Dr. Carmen, a couple of questions. The first one, how do we determine phase 1 and phase 2 schools?
This was determined after the last bidding process. If you recall, the direction that I was given from the board was to try to make it work with 3 separate companies. And in that conversation, we were basing that on the low bids per campus and on the retrofits that involve the tubes, not the fixtures. Those 10 campuses that we're looking at as phase 1 this evening were the 10 that Schneider had been lower on.
So in the original proposals where the 2 companies in question were lower, at the end of this bid, EGS was the lowest amongst all 3?
After this round, yes, sir. Of the 2 companies. So Schneider had been lower on 10 buildings after the initial bidding process on retrofits, and E3 had been lower on 8 buildings. So we went back out to Schneider using the fixtures from EGS. Once they got that price, they bid on those 10. I do not yet have the bid from E3 on the other 8 buildings. So that would be a Phase 2 consideration. If they bid equal to the EGS bid, my recommendation will be we go with E3 so they can do the labor portion of it. If they are higher, as Schneider was on this proposal, then my recommendation will be for whatever saves the district the most money.
Okay, and I know what appealed to you and in our conversations with that they would do in-house financing. Is that still the case with EGS?
Well, I think our take on in-house financing and their take may have been a little different. I think what they were calling in-house financing was financing and pay-as-you-go. They did offer a 3-year, I think, option for us to finance this out. But at the end of the day, that doesn't pay for itself. So we're going to spread it out a little bit so that our savings actually make those payments. So we're actually looking at, Mrs. Rendon, thank you for walking in, actually looking at government capital.
Okay. And then in terms, with projects like these, I always not question, but want to make sure that there's an accountability process. As you know, that's been part of the conversation since we were in a bond election and possibly project management in that sense, but what kind of accountability are we gonna make sure that what's on paper is gonna be executed accordingly?
So very similar to the projects we did this past summer with Dr. Garza and La Encantada. Mr. Chris Cole just loves going out and verifying the fixtures are what they said they would be. So when the shipments come in, we'll ask Mr. Cole and his team to go to those locations, verify that the products that we put on paper is what actually was shipped in. And then as they work through the phases of demoing and installing the new lights, again, they don't get paid until Mr. Cole signs off that they have completed the work that they said they were going to complete.
And my last question is, the last roadblock we ran into was customs. A lot of that materials were held from China. Are we going to experience the same delay thanks to the Trump administration this time around?
I had a feeling you were going there. Now, gentlemen, we get these parts don't come from China. Where do they come from?
Our manufacturing plant is outside of California.
California. Okay. I was going to say Korea, but okay, California it is.
Dr. Gorman, is any employees from the district being used for this project also?
Employees from the district.
I remember in one of the presentations, I don't know whether it was them or not, if possible, they could use some of our employees. No, I'm just asking. No, okay.
I don't.
No, it was one of the presenters.
I think one of the companies offered to hire locally, but
Yeah.
not necessarily our employees.
Okay.
But I think y'all's employees are from the valley. I don't know if they're from San Benito necessarily, but I mean. Yeah.
So, Dr. Carmen, I know one of the questions that was raised before with the other project previously, they were hiring local support. Would EGS be having I'm more than sure they're gonna have
Yes.
their own staff, correct? Because that was one of the delays that we experienced with the previous company, so.
That's correct. It was a smaller company, and they had to sub out the installation. EGS does have their own team. I'm not sure if they sub out any of the install or not. Gentlemen, do you sub any of that out?
We do, on some occasional, when we need the help, extra help, but as far as our team, we have a team.
Yeah, because that caused a big delay because they had to sub out all of the labor, that former company, the smaller one.
Right.
Right. But I
Yes,
think-
because the way I see it, I mean, the quicker it's installed, the quicker we start saving.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir.
Agenda item?
Agenda item, okay.
Okay. Committee concerns?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I have some committee concerns. Don't laugh, because they're very important. Okay, number one is, when are we going to get the parking lot finished or complete at the high school? That was a job that was started with that bond issue, and supposedly, they ran out of money or something happened, and it never was completed. And it was done with Mr. Limon's, way back with Mr. Limon. But we need that parking lot done, like a year ago.
And this is the visitors parking lot at the football stadium?
Yes, sir, the visitors parking lot at the stadium.
Okay, so I did provide the board with the list of the major renovations and construction projects that we had discussed over the past 12 months or so.
Okay,
And I think I know some of the things you're going to mention tonight, and those are on this list. I don't recall, and I didn't see on this list where the visitors parking lot for the stadium had come up prior. I'm not saying that's not something we can't add on, and then this board can prioritize based on the money that we have available. But these are the things that made the list based on our conversations over
Okay.
the past year or so.
and I can see the list and all that, but we need to add the high school football parking lot, we do. It needs to be done, I mean, big time. It looks tacky, and we're being criticized about it anyway, and I think it needs to be done, period. I don't care what happened to the money or what happened, I don't care. I think the parking lot needs to be done.
Can I say something, Emma? I think you're referring to the previous board in reference.
Previous
okay.
boards, yes.
To us.
Not us,
Okay,
the previous board.
Mr. Garcia, were you maintenance director at the time when to dovetail from Ms. Garcia, what exactly happened? Did money indeed run out? And did we not, as a board at the time, have a conversation about finishing off that? Because it's been 12 years now since.
Well, that part of the parking lot, the VIP parking, was probably made about 2011 or 12, and Mr. G, our fire clerk, he passed away, but his company did that work, and it actually needs a valley gutter going down the center, because you can see how they went back and kind of repatched the center, because it's kind of holding water. You guys probably noticed that. That's why it looks kind of tacky. But it does need to be resurfaced. But as far as adding to it, I mean, that's as big as we made it.
No, I don't want, I mean.
I think she's referring
Paving.
to paving.
Paving.
Blacktop.
The blacktop at the visitors parking
Oh,
lot.
the visitors.
The
parking. I'm
visitors.
sorry, I thought it was VIP parking.
No, no, the
no,
VIP
no.
is fine
Where
for
we-
me.
where we have the
It's the
caliche.
The
visitors.
visitors parking lot, that's a lot of money. That's a very, very big area. We're probably talking about $500,000 to do that.
And that's my
area.
question, is from the previous board when you were maintenance director.
We never had any intentions of doing any work. The only conversation we ever had with that was when we had Hurricane Dolly here, 2008. And since we were supposedly the hub for Cameron County, and there was some talk going around that the county would help and we would pave it all, because we had those big tankers with gasoline trucks and everything else, and everything was stationed there at the high school. But it was just talk, nothing ever happened with it.
So the board at that time, to your recollection, to borrow the $4.5 million for the stadium, did not plan on paving that parking lot?
No, none at all.
So it was stay caliche the whole time.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
That's very tacky.
Well, it's a lot of work even keeping the grass out of it, we have to burn it every once in a while and drag it with the backhoe. And Mr. Limon always liked it nice and clean, so every time we had a game, we made sure that it was nice and, at least caliche, but it was nice.
So you're saying it would cost about
I
$500,000?
would say so. It's very big. If we're looking at the bus area there at the transportation, that area is about 300,000, I think, Ms. Rendon. And that's just like a third, of that area. Is very big.
And it doesn't look that big to me.
It is.
Pretty big. Your
Is it
half
figure to
million
the wind, or-
may be low.
I could, yeah.
Your half
I
million may
could
be
get,
low.
I can get quotes. It's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Because if we're if we want to start prioritizing, I know I spoke to Ms. Flores last week about her parking lot, and she had some workman's comp claims from that parking lot because of issues there.
It is in very bad shape. That area is
So I
very,
guess we
it
just
needs,
need to put our heads
it
together.
needs some engineering, because of to get the water out, because it kind of holds water in a lot of areas, and we try to keep it, at least from puddling so bad. But I know she's had a lot of problems there.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you.
Okay, that's one. Number two, don't laugh. Number two is here. I see where you have here the press box, an elevator upgrade. I don't know why we need an elevator, pero bueno, that's beside the point. But the press box, is that a new press box we're building, or what is it? Or are we going to upgraded, or what, sir?
That estimate on this list was to replace, I think, with a two-level larger press box to be able to accommodate visiting coaches, our coaching staff, the radio stations, et cetera, that are there, in addition to our scorekeepers and timers. And I think that if we build that, there's a requirement for handicap accessibility to have the elevator, and that's why that was included, I think,
Okay,
in
the
there.
elevator, yes, okay.
But again, we did not put that into the 18-19 budget, so that'll be up to the board on whether you want to dig into fund balance for any or all of these things. And we're holding off on two items. One, the bond election that's out there, so that we know whether or not we're moving forward with those three facilities. And then two, on our audit, to see how much money we recaptured from last year. And I think we finally have that done from our auditors, so I think the board will have that information by next Tuesday.
Okay,
And then the board can start making decisions on final prioritization of these projects.
okay. All right, number 3. And I see this up here also. The softball additional sitting and the cover sitting and the netting. And I wanted to know if we were going to do that, but again, it's on the list. It's not that much, but it's on the list.
It is on the list. We did get quotes last year. They may have gone up slightly, excuse me, since we didn't do that work. But again, we're right at that time to where we can start prioritizing and getting contractors onto these things.
Okay. Number 4, and I saw this here too, the fencing. You have fencing for Dr. Garza and fencing for VMA. Is that 50,000 for VMA?
It is 25,000 for Garza and 50,000. That was my question, Ms. Garcia. Was that just out by the street? Or was it all the way around? It can't be all the way around VMA, is it? Wow.
Okay. Okay. See, that was all.
And I have one, Mr. Rosas. I was visiting campuses last week, and I kept, and this is no reflection maybe on your team, Mr. Garcia, so I just want to get educated on how work orders are done. There were many, I know you have many from several campuses, and you have a plethora of campuses to deal with, but is there a priority system? How do you go about making sure that some of these work orders are given priority? Because on some campuses, it seems that student safety may be at stake, and in some campuses, it just seems, we're all over the place with different work orders. So because I got it from so many principals, I just wanted to ask how the process works, just so I'm educated. And when I'm visiting campuses, I have answers for, leaders who are asking me about it.
Okay. Principals supposedly supposed to turn in the work orders. We have many different people turning in work orders through a campus, which shouldn't probably be. We get them, of course, electronically. My people pull them out at 2:30 in the afternoon every day. We assign the work orders to all our different trades, and they prioritize. Of course, if it's a safety issue, we're on it. We'll stop what we're doing and take care of it. Others, where they say power wash the whole campus, right? Can't happen. That's something that's going to take a long time, and we try to say we'll be able to do it maybe during spring break or during the Christmas break or something like that when we have time, and depending on the weather. But there's a lot of painting having to be done, and painting is very hard because you cannot paint in occupied areas. We cannot paint while the kids are there. We have some situations, some kid was getting nauseated because of the smell of the paint, even though we try to use, of course, non-oil-based paints, water-based paints, and there are some even paints that you can buy a little bit more expensive that don't smell at all. But still, you cannot hardly paint in an occupied space. And then there's some work orders that I even give them to Dr. Carmen to check this out, some are really ridiculous, and so that's how we prioritize, right now it's, we're catching up with all the yards when we had all that rainy season, in August, September, and we have some younger boys now that we've hired, and they're doing a really good job, but that's how we do it.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess this is a question for maybe Mr. Rendon or maybe for administration, but just aggregately as a district for each department, do we have goals set in place yearly? For instance, work orders? Is there a goal set where each director is held accountable to meet that goal yearly?
Not presently, other than we're trying to review them. And I sat with Mr. Garcia and go through, like, such as the painting, and we need to schedule it, and he needs to go through them, and safety is number one. You know, we need to address all those safety issues. Our goal is to complete what is needed on a timely basis.
Yeah, because I think instructionally, where we have what we call SMART goals, or we have goals to measure success, maybe we should do that for some of our departments as well.
I'll work on something.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question, Dr. Carmen. Back earlier, when we both came in, we talked about Oscar de la Fuente. And you know how the traffic is out there on South Sam Houston, and the cars are right there by the highway, so dangerous, and so on and so forth. You mentioned something about moving the fans a little bit inward towards the school, or is that going to happen, or what is going to happen there? Are we doing any kind of renovations on the fencing and the buses and all that?
So that fencing project that we had discussed is actually the county. They are cutting through and widening that road, not Sam Houston, but the other road.
Oh, yes, Ramsey, was it Ramsey?
And,
Dixieland.
So
Not
they
Dixieland.
they have actually already paid us for that property, and so they will come through and demo. The fence will be moved in because that road will be widened. But in meeting with Mr. Diaz, just as a meeting with all the principals about pickup, the line has gone down. Now they kind of have the routine down. So we talked about whether we should change and use the other parking lot for cars, try to get them off of the main
Right.
road quicker. But when you go out there now, it's greatly reduced. The only line now is if parents show up at 2:15 or 2:30 instead of waiting until closer to dismissal time, and
Yeah.
we can't control that.
Guilty.
I'd like to add
Guilty.
I'd like to add
Thank you.
another question on that, Mr. Board President and Dr. Carmen. At the beginning of the year, we spoke of enclosing those canopies for the kids. I think that's a priority, and there were some brochures brought where we can enclose those and put garage doors so they can open them in the summer. I think that's, instead of having the kids on the hallway playing or in libraries, because I went to see a couple of campuses, I think we need to do something about that. I mean, Dr. Cash put us up there with the states. Everybody notices. Ms. Lambert, from 300 kids last year to almost 700 kids. I mean, we got their lights. We need to make those buildings shine the way it's supposed to be shined, and make those kids go outside and play. Football is fine, baseball is fine, but you only two activities where you got kids, dozens of kids playing all sorts of activities. Just take, the stadium was named after a track individual, not a football player, okay? Think about it. So I think priorities have to be, like, we're doing it to Mr. Garcia. I think we need priorities, because this kids being out in the hallway is no good for us. Thank you.
Right, and those enclosures are on that list. So again, it'll be up to this board to decide whether that's more important than the roofs, whether it's less important than the security cameras. We
Okay.
do have some updated numbers on some of these things, like the security cameras. We got a bid in for much, much less than the number on this sheet.
Okay.
That was a rough estimate, and apparently was very high. But yeah, ultimately, it'll be up to this board to prioritize, again, once we kind of know how much money we have to work with for these projects.
Yeah, Doc, I'm gonna put in my 2 cents real quick on this whole situation. Yeah, it's very obvious that there's a lot of priorities throughout the district, and us, or the district leaders prioritize those priorities, but I think what would be extremely advantageous for us all is to have the impact of the staff of each school and see, what avenue, or guide us on what the priorities are. I mean, for us sitting here, it's very easy to say, okay, we need to enclose this building, so on and so forth, but it's very, every single basketball court, those facilities do need to be enclosed, but we have a lot of other priorities as well. So maybe having a dialogue with our district leaders at the campus levels also, so they can give us ideas on what we need to do, and what's best for their kids, that they're educating on a daily basis. Thank you, Doc.
Yes, sir. And I'll remind you that last year, we met with the principals in our principal meeting to gather information on this list of renovations, as well as the Superintendent Advisory Council. So we have been soliciting input from those who are on the campuses, and we will continue to do so. And if this board decides they want a committee of campus personnel to help guide them through the prioritization, once we have a hard figure of dollars to work with, we can certainly do that.
Thanks, Doc, appreciate
You
it.
bet.
So all we need is just the money, honey. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
on that, on the bond, as the bond,
The bond,
if
yes,
we,
okay.
you know, if it passes, what we're hoping, is that the bond, is that money gonna be used for it only, or? I mean, is it for,
Okay.
So, the way the bond is written, if it passes, it authorizes this board to sell up to $40 million worth of bonds. And so let's say that we're able to get those 3 facilities done at the quality, the level we want, for $34 million. This board would have the option of only selling those $34 million worth of bonds, or could sell all $40 million, and the other $6 million could be used for renovations, or a portion of it. If there's $2 million worth of PE elementary gyms that this board wants to address, and there's $6 million worth of bonds, this board could choose to sell $2 million of that.
Okay.
It's a general written, general obligation bond, so this board would have that authority, should the bond pass.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned at 6:05.
Okay.